tuned into SEC Sunday Night, part of the Chief Sports Network.
Welcome in to SEC Sunday Night Live on the Chief Sports Network. Good morning on a Saturday morning. It is not Sunday night. If you are misled by the title, we are live right now on a Saturday morning because we have plenty of round one college football playoff to talk about, and we are proudly presented by Hewitt Domaduros Law. HDLawSC.com is the place to go to find Brad or Dean for your personal injury needs. Craig, it's early. It's a little bit of a throwback. You and I have not done a morning show in close to a year.
Yeah, it's been about a year and a half.
I know that you have a nice steaming cup of coffee, as do I. It's a refreshing thing to join you early in the morning, and of course we'll be back tomorrow night at 8 p.m. to recap the whole thing. First and foremost, how are you, my friend? How's the morning treating you? What's going on?
Well, it's 7 a.m. in Oxford, Mississippi, but the sun is shining and the day is bright because it's SEC on Sunday night, on Saturday morning. That tells you everything how I'm feeling, because I am fantastic. And no, this is not Pappy this is not actual Pappy. This is Pappy's coffee. So I can't show you because I'd spill it all over my computer. But I am doing fantastic. Great game last night. Great way to kick off the college football playoff. And now we have 2 SEC games, and then the Oregon Ducks will cap us off tonight. So if anything taught us anything, let's not overreact too quickly. But let's get going and let's enjoy the games.
Oh, my friend, do we have some discussions around that overreaction to get into here in just a moment? But before we do that, let's give us a little bit of credit here, okay? Because oftentimes we talk about how we were wrong. I was wrong was almost our opening segment today, as you and I stood 10 toes down on an Alabama prediction, an Alabama win. In fact, I said right here that 24 was the magic number. That was perhaps the cap of Oklahoma's offensive production.
You did.
And here we have it, Craig. We were right for once. Not a we were wrong segment, but Alabama prevails after being down 17-0. The freezing cold takes are all over the place. But not for us, at least not in our major game predictions, because we were both on Alabama. What did you see, kind of looking at it from a big picture standpoint? What stood out to you? You know, obviously for me, it's a big comeback and a statement for a guy like Ty Simpson.
Yeah, that was huge for Simpson. I don't know what it took so long for Alabama to show up, and I think the biggest takeaway: Oklahoma cannot be up 17 against an SEC team in the playoffs. You know, they coughed it away in 2018 against Georgia. They do it again now. But Alabama, I think, remember we talked yesterday, and I said Alabama just needs to show up and show that they're Alabama and play. That's what they did from about the second quarter on. They just out-athleted, and they just played better. They composed. And they threw you back a little bit to those saving teams, so they just kept pounding. Where Oklahoma got off to that fast start, they had a couple of things go wrong, and basically, I mean, they fell apart. But I'm gonna bring it up. Do we have to talk about Brent Venables? Because I just feel like some of those game decisions with 6 minutes to go, kicking a field goal seemingly taking a lot of time off the clock. I know they missed the first field goal where it was just wide left. I guess it looked like it went over the upright, but who knows? But there's some questionable calls where I feel like if you're an Oklahoma fan, you're wondering, is BV really the answer, despite going to the playoff?
I think that they're pretty satisfied. I understand your question from an outsider's perspective.
Sure.
What I was able to see is, as we know, Craig, let's just call this like it is.
Mhm.
Every fan base has its level-headed fans, and then it has its fans who earn the name fanatic, right? And sometimes that means they say some wild things. We kind of make a routine of highlighting those things with the help of MBG, right?
Right.
But if I look at the level-headed Oklahoma fans and media, there seems to be an even keel of, hey, this was a heck of a turnaround. And so I think that I'm going to take that perspective and look at going from the offensive debacle that was 2024, Brent Venables' seat being on flames. Absolutely, we thought that it was over heading into this year. We did not have high hopes for Oklahoma. Maybe that's our I was wrong moment, right? Like, it's time for us to own it and fess up that we both didn't think they would be good. Maybe in that 6-6 range. I think I had them at 5-7.
Yep.
We didn't believe in Mateer making the transition. And we've said multiple times here on this show that we were wrong about that. And then he made the transition. But was this the moment that was too big for him? Where we've seen him be a little sporadic. We've seen him show these flashes of insane greatness. But it was mentioned here yesterday by Clint Lamb. And we've said it time and time again. Mechanically, he's kind of all over the place, which causes his ball to be inaccurate. Craig, that wasn't the problem, though. This was just a clear miscommunication. He throws it straight into a pick six, like the one of the easiest pick sixes that you get as a corner, sitting down on that ball and just sprinting down the sideline. And John Mateer was not able to save it by making a tackle. That shifted the game and changed everything. When we talk about Uncle Mo and what sideline he's standing on, the momentum shifted big time when he threw that pick six.
I agree with you there too. Plus, you look back just before the punt, right? Everyone's thinking about the punt that was dropped on the ground versus actually hitting the Oklahoma punter's foot. But the play before that, Mateer hits his receiver in the hands. They couldn't come down with it. That could have turned a 17-7 game into 24-7. But Mateer could have ran that one as well. Could have extended the play. My question is, now that the portal is open for Oklahoma, I think you go back shopping and see what's available. And Mateer is a nice player, but I don't think he's that elite top end player that we thought he was going to be. He's very good, but the gunslinger and the chances he takes, the bad form that he takes, may not be enough to get him to that next level. And maybe that's a question on Ben Arbuckle. Because I think we probably could have said the same thing for Jackson Dart in year 2 before he popped for Ole Miss in year 3. But I think there's questions on Mateer. I think there's questions with Oklahoma. Again, the defense is good. The offensive problems are still there, though. Oklahoma had an opportunity. I think we also have to talk about, maybe, Rob, I was wrong, right? I think when it was 17-0, I may have said
Don't worry, I
Notre
got it
Dame should
covered.
have been in. Yep. So, yes, we did predict it correctly. But, I want to give Courtney a shout out and give everybody a shout out. The reason why Alabama came back and won is because I jinxed them. And I felt very confident about that.
Well,
I also
it
may have
was
made the
you.
joke that, it was me and everybody else.
It was you and everybody else. I have
Yep.
thoroughly enjoyed the just combing through X, which is unhinged, by the way. Absolutely unhinged. I made the point earlier this week that X makes message boards look calm. It absolutely does. The fans on X are the next level of out there comments And it's not just fans. Sometimes it's
Yep.
credentialed media. Sometimes it's players and coaches. You never know what you're going to get. It is the wild, wild west on there, and I'm here for it, and I'm loving it. You were not the only one in that first quarter last night to stick your entire foot in your mouth. And I've enjoyed just
It
sitting
was
back.
fun, though. It was fun.
It was fun. It was fun. And now it's hilarious because I put my phone down. I ate a few wings at D's Wings. Shout out. I was able to sit back, watch the game, and see how it continued to unfold over the course of it. All right. So one thing that you said about Mateer, I want to make a comment on. Though I think this calls into question a bigger discussion. It's bigger than John Mateer. This development versus replacement discussion. And I think that everybody is going to have to evaluate that a little differently because everybody has a different player in whatever position, whether it is quarterback or somewhere else, and everybody has a different coach that is responsible for that player specifically. So the question for me just really comes into play. We want to look at Oklahoma specifically. Can Ben Arbuckle develop John Mateer to continue to grow in this system, in this league against this level of competition? Or is it a situation where Brent Venables overrides everything and says, yeah, maybe we should – this guy's too good to turn down that we have here in the portal, whether that's Sorsby or Hoover or whoever it may end up being. I don't know that I necessarily like Hoover but in this system because he can't move as well.
Yep.
Great passer, but I think you're going to need feet in an Arbuckle offense. But we'll see how that plays out. Oklahoma would be a very interesting player in the quarterback market.
Yeah, and I think to that question, Mateer and Arbuckle package deal coming in from Washington State.
Exactly.
So when you think about when you bring up the question of what is Mateer's development, he's been with Ben Mateer, or I'm sorry, he's been with Ben Arbuckle. As I need to grab another cup of coffee, but he's been with Ben Arbuckle. So, like, not seeing that growth now as a junior, can we expect those things to get cleaned up for next year as a senior? Because let's be honest, it's going to be year 5 for Brent Venables, and I don't know if a first-round playoff exit is going to be enough.
Well, the bigger question for me then, as we make a transition, is time for a talk about what's going on in the rest of the day, and we have Emily Taylor to kick that off. You had Emily Taylor earlier this week, and we'll get to that discussion in just a moment. The last thing that I'll say is we've seen what happens with Brent Venables when he has a quarterback and an offensive coordinator that match, and then he makes a change with one of them and it doesn't match. The guy that came in with Jackson Arnold was not who ended up calling plays when Jackson Arnold was thrust into the spotlight, and that did not mesh. So if you change quarterbacks, you got to get somebody that matches Ben Arbuckle's system, because I do think the offensive system and the way that he called it this year was successful and works well at Oklahoma. Okay, SEC Sunday night. It's 8:13 a.m. Eastern, and we have Emily Taylor with Craig to talk about the Oregon Ducks and a little bit more of what's going on Saturday in the college football playoff.
This is SEC Sunday night on the Chiefs Sports Network.
Back to SEC Sunday night, and I think you all will agree that this next segment will bring you joy. We are welcomed in by Miss Emily Taylor, probably one of the biggest Oregon Duck fans, also the host of Big Talk with Emily on the Total Coverage Sports. And we wanted to bring Emily in here to talk a little bit about the Oregon game. But first and foremost, I have to say thank you, because it was Emily who gave me my awesome Georgia Bulldogs cup. Emily, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I am doing so well. Thank you so much for the kind words and for having me on the show. I'm super excited to talk to you today, Craig.
Yeah, no, it's been great. We've been interacting for a long time. You've done a really great job this season. You've expanded. You've gone into, like, I guess we're going to call it a show. I keep making the mistake of calling all of these like podcasts because I feel like that was like the nomenclature all the time, wasn't it?
Right. Right. I think I use those terms pretty interchangeably when I'm talking about it. Sometimes I'll say podcast, sometimes I'll say show. It's all the same to me.
Perfect, perfect. Well, can you tell us a little bit about what our viewers? I know we're usually an SEC group here, but we have some fans who like to expand. So, can you tell us a little bit about what our fans can expect for Big Talk with Emily?
Yeah, absolutely. So I generally host the show at least once. I try to do it a few times per week. And I am so incredibly lucky to have some amazing guests hop on with me to basically just talk about the general landscape of the conference and kind of what's going on. So during the regular season, we would do game recaps and we would preview the upcoming weekend of the Big Ten games. But right now, we're really focused on bowl games. So this entire week, we've been previewing all of the bowl games featuring a Big Ten team. So it's been a lot of fun. It's super fun talking about the conference and kind of just the direction it's headed in, as well as thinking about playoffs and the fact that the Big Ten has 3 teams in the playoffs and kind of talking about that and getting excited about that.
Yeah, no, I was listening actually to your show yesterday. You guys did a great job. You and Casey did a great job previewing the Pinstripe Bowl. So it was
thank
great.
you so much.
Yeah, I'm glad you were able to get a word in edgewise because sometimes Casey likes to be a little verbose. So
right, yeah, that's why we love him, right? It's so true.
Oh, 100%.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about your Oregon Ducks. So,
okay.
I feel like they are coming into the playoff under the radar. We have the one loss to Indiana,
Yes.
but I feel like for whatever reason, I feel like the national media just moved on.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very dangerous place. With a lot of respect for Dan Lanning, but I would love to kind of get your feel of how this season has gone, and then we can kind of kick into the playoffs a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. I think the Ducks are kind of flying under the radar right now, and I'm not totally mad about that. I think it's a good place to be. I think in terms and in comparison to where the Ducks were last season, especially in the postseason and where they landed in the playoffs, I think this year is a bit more favorable for the Ducks. And so I'm really excited to kind of see how they tackle this, obviously taking on JMU this weekend. But in terms of the regular season, I mean, it wasn't disappointing for me personally. I know some fans were hoping for another undefeated season. I kind of expected at least one loss. I didn't necessarily think it would be to Indiana, but I think Indiana has blown everybody out of the water this season and has really shocked the nation in terms of what Coach Cignetti's doing over there and how he's been able to get that program up to where they are. Really just a historical season for them. And so I'm not totally mad that that's the Ducks' one loss.
Yeah, no, that again was like a little bit of a shock even for me. But like I said, it's been hard for us to wrap our minds around the idea that Indiana is a Big Ten champion, is undefeated. But again, if we Google Kirk Cignetti, we should know who he is. So
exactly,
he comes in there. Yeah,
exactly.
So as we come into James Madison, I think a lot of people are looking at the Saturday night game and being like, oh, the Ducks should win by a lot. Are there anything that you've taken a look at it as you've done your homework now on James Madison that you think could pose a problem for the Ducks?
Not necessarily a problem all game long or a problem long term through 4 quarters. I definitely could see maybe it being a competitive and close game for maybe 1 quarter, maybe 1 half. But honestly, the Ducks, in terms of skill and comparing the skill and comparing who JMU has played versus who Oregon has played, it's just a really big gap. And I think the fact that this is a home playoff game for Oregon and that stadium is going to be filled and it's going to be a really electric environment, I think that'll be enough to kind of stifle JMU in conjunction with the fact that I think they haven't necessarily met a defense like Oregon's yet. And I think they're just going to be kind of up against tough competition at every position.
Yeah. And so this was one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is that game day experience at Autzen. When the Pac-12 unfortunately was breaking apart and Oregon was looking for a home, I made the argument, to which Rob was upset about, that I thought if the SEC was going to expand beyond that bottom right-hand corner of the country, to me, Oregon made a lot of sense. You have a game day experience. You have Nike, which is never a bad thing, and you have an NIL situation that is together, and I think you have a passionate fan base. So, like, is there anything that I'm missing there from that Oregon experience that maybe our friends across the SEC maybe are missing out on or might not know about?
I mean, it is an electric game day experience. I hear that so often too, especially being in the Big Ten now. We have these different fan bases traveling to Eugene and participating in that game day experience. I always hear comments or stories about how, wow, we had no idea that this is how it was in Eugene and the game day experience was great. And oh my gosh, the stadium is so loud. And so it's really easy to be forgotten, especially within the SEC, I imagine, kind of like venturing out and realizing that other environments can compete with what the SEC consistently puts out. And I think being in the Big Ten kind of helps that. It kind of spreads awareness and kind of gets those stories and gets those headlines pumping up even more about like what a great game day experience it is in Eugene. And so
Good.
I think maybe I can totally understand this, like why people who maybe didn't pay very much attention to the Pac-10, Pac-12, and kind of just this upper left-hand corner of the country in general would not necessarily think about that. But it is an electric game day experience, and I think Big Ten fan bases are already kind of understanding that.
Good. No, like I said, that is a bucket list for me to head out and come see a game in Eugene. I was a couple years ago. I was a little north of you in Seattle, and I got to see the Husky Stadium. It was very nice and all that sort of thing. But I don't want to poke the bear or upset a relationship too much. But
it is something that I will compliment UW on, is they do have a very pretty environment. That's like
they do.
That's the compliment they can get out of me pretty consistently.
That worked out so well this year for them. Their bowl season's already over, and they may be losing their coach yet again. So
exactly.
So what about the offense? I know Oregon had battled a little bit of the injury bug kind of towards the end of the year. They had a couple of receivers out. Are we coming back to health for the game? What should fans be expecting from the Ducks tonight when they kick off?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they shouldn't be expecting any more information than what they'll get probably on game day and not a minute sooner.
Right.
But the speculation is that we are going to get injured players back, which should help the overall cohesion of the offense. I mean, I know the competition was not playoff caliber towards the end of the season, but Oregon did a really good job on offense, kind of keeping that cohesion and pulling through in these competitive games despite having so many injured players and key wide receivers out. So I'm super excited for that, to kind of see the unit back together, if that's something that we get to see fully on Saturday. However, obviously full confidence, especially with an at-home game, in the fact that Oregon can continue operating on the offense as they have been in this later half of the regular season if they need to.
Yeah. So moving quickly to the defense, I think Dan Lanning is a rock star, and what I really love about it is this is, again, I'm going to give a compliment to Oregon that Washington quite hasn't found yet. I felt like for a while Oregon was like cycling through coaches, right? Like it was that stepping stone of like we're the higher tier 2 moving up. I feel like Oregon now is in that spot. Lanning, I know, got a lot of love last year or a couple years ago, I should say, for Alabama. He's shut down any of that example. What has Lanning's influence been on that? We know about the Ducks defense. You talked about that. But I feel like there is a personality with Oregon where we still have that offensive flash, but I feel like there's an edge to that team. Can you talk a little bit about what Lanning has brought to the Ducks?
Yeah, he has definitely done an excellent job creating the culture that he has on an interpersonal level on both sides of the ball. And so I think when he was originally hired, people really did focus on the defense, rightfully so, coming from being the defensive coordinator at Georgia. And that was something that we were really anticipating, was the defense becoming stronger and more dominant. And we have absolutely seen that, but it's been incredibly impressive what he's been able to continue and kind of keep up culture-wise on the offense. And I think it really speaks to the amount of effort, time, and energy he's put in, going to the depths of ensuring that that is never lost on Oregon as an overall program, whether that is really tapping into the history of Oregon, talking to previous players, just really important people to the program, and kind of keeping them involved and keeping them a part of Oregon's story. I think that's done a tremendous job at kind of creating this cohesion and this culture on the program overall.
It will, and I think you see that culture and that effect, because how many times have we seen in the hiring cycles, people are coming to Oregon to hire his offensive and defensive coordinators, and Lanning, I think, did a great job, talking about, he's like, hey, listen, we have head coaches in this room. They're gonna move on, but the coordinators are also here. So like we're ready to build that up. So I think that culture is rich. And like I said, I think Oregon's in a fantastic spot there in the Big Ten. Rob and I will like to poke fun at it a little bit, but I think between Oregon, Ohio State, and our friends Indiana, I think they're in good spirits. I want to leave you with this. What is obviously, I think we can both agree, probably we're going to be okay for the game tonight. But what does the future hold for the Ducks in the playoffs in 2025?
Wait, I'm sorry, could you repeat that, just because you broke up?
Yeah, no problem. So what's your prediction? How far do the Ducks go in this playoff season? Are we hanging a banner?
Craig, I am so used to being heartbroken around this time of year or in January that it's something I haven't even allowed my brain to process and get to. I'm hopeful, though. I like like I said in the beginning, I like where Oregon is positioned in this playoff run. I think being in that number 5 seed is actually incredibly favorable, starting with JMU. And then obviously if Oregon wins, they will continue on to play Texas Tech. And so I think that Oregon definitely makes it further in the playoffs than they did last year, which isn't hard to say. But I am hopeful that Oregon, definitely a step in the right direction. And of course, I'm hoping it ends with a national championship appearance and a win. But it's like slow and steady. Gotta protect all the emotions. Slow and steady, right?
Yep. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I think, that's what I'm looking forward to. While this one, I think, is just going to get comfortable, we're going to make sure we've got all the rust knocked off. That game against Texas Tech should be fantastic. But I have a feeling Dan Lanning's defense is going to be able to really shut out that Texas Tech offense. Sorry to my friend Adrian McCleary, but maybe hit the portal and grab someone who can help you score in the red zone. Emily Taylor, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us so much. Please tell the people again where they can find you on X, on Instagram, and your show.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am on X or Twitter, and Instagram is the same handle. It's just my name right there, Emily E. Taylor, but a 23 at the end. I always seem to forget to put that. But you can find me on the Total Coverage Sports channel on YouTube, and as well as there on TikTok.
Awesome. Emily, thank you so much. Go Ducks.
Thank you so much. Go Ducks.
When playing sports, you want a coach that will fight for you. At Hewitt Diamaduros Law Firm, we've got your back. Whether it's personal injury, insurance disputes, negligence, or wrongful death, our team delivers exceptional legal services that makes meaningful difference in the lives of the individuals and families we work for. Visit hdlawsc.com. hdlawsc.com. Hewitt Diamaduros, we're on your team.
Oh, man. The building is on fire.
Emergencies and accidents happen. When you're in the middle of a fire or water event, all you want is for things to return to normal as soon as possible. Resto Pros of the Midlands is with you, guiding you through the process and working with you to get your home or office back in working order. They'll answer your questions, discuss procedures, and can act as your advocate when it comes to processing your insurance claim. Resto Pros Midlands SC.com. Open 24/7 when you need them. Quality that is guaranteed.
At TriFit Physical Therapy and Performance, We believe true health and peak performance start with personalized care. Whether you're an athlete, recovering from injury, or just chasing your next personal best, we're here to guide your journey. With expert coaching, hands-on therapy, and transparent cash-based pricing, you get the care you need without the insurance red tape. One client drove 100 miles just to see us and said it was worth every mile. Contact us at trifitperformance.com or 803-353-5619. TriFit Physical Therapy and Performance, where recovery meets results.
Yo, what's up?
Baby, let's go!
This is SEC Sunday Night, part of the Chief Sports Network.
Welcome back to SEC Sunday Night, live on the Chief Sports Network and live on a Saturday morning. Yes, don't let the title fool you. It is not Sunday night. It is bright and early on a Saturday morning, and we have so much to talk about. Craig, great job there with Emily as you look into the Oregon Ducks and beyond a little bit. Now, joined by our good friend Memphis Spence to talk about what we have in front of us today. Spence, first of all, happy Saturday morning. How's it going? How are we feeling? And I'll let you bring up your bowl game experience. We'll get to that in a moment.
Rob, Craig, good morning. Good morning. This is funny because I've been on SEC Sunday nights, everything other than a Sunday night. You do realize that, right? I've actually been on SEC Sunday nights I've been on a Tuesday, Saturday morning. I've been on SEC Sunday nights every other time other than an actual Sunday night. So I'm glad to see the show going. And I'm a little crotchety this morning because of that bowl game I decided to go. Every time I go as a fan to like a Memphis game, for whatever reason, we lose. If I cover it, then maybe we win. But if I go as a fan, it's just, I don't know. Ever since I left college, actually. In college, when I was actually in college, we used to win. And now, it's bad. It's bad. So
let me put a call in at Coach Huff then and make sure that you are credentialed for every game next year. So
people are trying to get me on the staff, and I'm like, no, guys, I'm not going to be on the staff. Coach Huff he has enough on his plate now, just pulling the pieces together. There were a lot of guys that weren't even playing. Sutton, I thought, for whatever reason, I thought Sutton Smith was going to be playing, and he was there dressed without a helmet. And I was like, oh, he's just here for support. Okay, this game isn't going to go well. But no, it was a calamity of events and crazy time yesterday.
Yeah, it's never a good day losing to Dave Doran, that's for sure. But we'll leave that discussion there for the time being. Spence, we have a fun day ahead of us. First of all, bowl season has been a lot of fun. Craig is out on the bowl season. I am fully in on the bowl season. We could not be in more opposition. I'm watching everything. I Nick Minicucci and Delaware getting it done the other night against Louisiana. I'm right there. I'm in it, right? Craig, I don't know how many bowl games you've watched, but our conversations would lead me to believe not very many.
I've actually watched them all, and shout out to the Delaware Blue Hens and my guy Dan Flynn,
there you go.
Dixie Podcast, Delaware alum. His dad coached football at Delaware. I've actually watched them. It's just You're
not entertained. Where's Russell Crowe to hold out his sword? You're not entertained by these bowl games.
But we look at the calendar, right? And something psychologically happens when you have a playoff game and you have bowl games. It's the same thing that would happen when we had the 14 playoff and they would play New Year's Eve. New Year's Day just hit a little bit differently. And again, I think it's a psychological factor for me. It's the same thing that I was complaining about this morning in our last word chat. I complained a lot in there, but God love Uncle Tony for keeping me in it. D2, FCS, both have their national championships today. Yet they're going to be on the O Show, or they're going to be somewhere else, and they're not going to get that necessary spotlight.
It's funny you should say that.
Good.
Here's the schedule. Continue to talk, but our friend Tyler Markley does a phenomenal job. I love it. I love what he does.
Yeah.
I love what he does. So here's everything for you. If you're watching, you can see this. Follow him at Projection Sports, PROJ Sports on X, and you can get these. You can get these just about every day, and he's going to give you those top basketball matchups. Here you have, as you mentioned, Craig, some Division II, some FCS sprinkled in there. And obviously the college football playoff is there as well. So sorry to cut you off, but a visual for your argument.
Right. Like keep the visual up, because look at this. At 4:00, you have both the FCS game between Montana and Montana State, which is going to be phenomenal. It is like the Iron Bowl playing each other for the national championship. And then you have two 15-0 teams, Harding versus Ferris State. Now, someone on the SEC might be, why the hell are you talking about Ferris State? Well, Trinidad Chambliss is going to be playing quarterback today for Ole Miss. Where did he win a national championship last year? Ferris State. Where should Michigan look for their next coach? Probably Ferris State. So, I just don't understand. Again, Memphis, we bring him here because he is the professor. Maybe he can bring some light to this. To me, from a media savvy point of view, this just doesn't make sense, and I feel like we missed the boat.
I mean, this is the time of year where a lot of channels and media professionals, such as myself, we're just trying to stack the deck because there's a lot of people off. They take the week off, or the weekend off, or the week of Christmas or whatnot, and it's kind of like your Christmas spread or your Thanksgiving spread. You want to have a little bit of everything there so people can kind of choose and pick what they eat. It's not like a regular meal, like your meat and potatoes. You know what I'm saying? It's you have usually about 10 different side dishes. Like Memphis versus Mississippi State, there's a side dish of what's probably going to be bad basketball. And if you want you want to sprinkle in a little bit bad basketball instead of watching Tulane versus Ole Miss, go right ahead. If you're an Ole Miss Memphis fan or something like that, and you're watching the Memphis game, the Memphis basketball game, and it gets out of hand, just to turn the channel and see what Tulane and Ole Miss is doing, and you're still there on the tube. So when you're programming a lot of these channels or whatnot, you're just trying to make sure that there's enough on there to peak and keep people's interest while they're off, because normally, people have work, people have jobs, and you're trying to, just put enough in there weekly, enough big hitting things weekly to draw as much people as possible, and draw that big audience in a short time frame. Where it flips when everybody's off, where you're like, okay, let's put this on, let's put this on, let's put this on. That Montana State versus Montana game is actually one of the things that piqued my interest. I'll be probably tuning into that because I know alum of both, and that's probably going to be a pretty big game. It's a big rivalry there. I'll say that. Big Sky Country.
Absolutely, and the ticket was outrageous to get into that game. More expensive than what we saw here in the first round, even in the college football playoff. They're a playoff game, Montana State. The NFL games are interesting to me. They're kind of wedged in the middle of this graphic.
Oh, yeah.
But it's hard to compete with the NFL, even with a college football playoff Saturday and with all the basketball that's going on. I'll be interested. Craig, you make a great point. You can see that Ferris State game kind of wedged right there above Philly and Washington. You've got basketball games going on. You've got the Montana State game going on. You've got Ole Miss, Tulane going on. You got Eagles, Commanders going on at that same time in the overlap. So, tough to get eyes on Ferris State. So, Craig, I'm sure they appreciate you giving them the shout out there.
They probably do, but ESPN totally seeded that matchup to the NFL, because if you looked at that graphic, there is nothing competing against that evening game. Again, we're supposed to, and again, this is maybe the ESPN and the NFL, maybe allegedly being in bed with one another with their little TV deal. But you put Texas A&M against Miami, or you put Alabama, Oklahoma on Saturday night, on ABC and you counter that with the Fox game,
Well,
you
the
can't tell
issue
me
there
you're not getting it.
The issue there too is that ESPN doesn't have those slots. These games are on TNT, True TV, HBO Max. The
Don't get me
3:30
started on
and
that.
the
We won't even get there
3:30
because
and the what is it? 7:30 JMU Oregon game. Yeah. Spence, speaking of those two games, you got two G5s in this college football playoff.
Right.
As someone who is
G6.
well versed in exploring that world, yeah, fly like a G6 teams, as Craig likes to call them. What is the role of these teams on? I'm not sure there's not Pappy in your coffee mug this morning, Craig.
Wait. He has Pappy in his. Did you all leave me out of the Pappy? First of all, Rob, you left me off of the dinner, and now you're leaving me. Oh, you do have Pappy in there, don't you?
We don't know what's in it.
My coffee's empty.
We just know what it says on the outside. He already claimed that he didn't have Pappy in the coffee. It was just a Pappy mug. But now he's dancing. He's already sung a song for us this morning, Spence.
That's fantastic, man.
You know,
juking on the show. I love it.
He's going to be a five-tool entertainer before this is over with. Okay, let's look at these fly like a G6 matchups here. What's the role of the G5, Spence, in this college football playoff? Where do you stand on their ability to compete? I saw your eyeballs on X with an 0-5 Oklahoma team not being able to compete in this college football playoff over the course of 4 to 12 team formats. What are your thoughts on two of these G5 teams in, and what does this year mean overall for the big picture when it comes to this level of a team competing in a college football playoff?
I like the idea of JMU getting in over the ACC champion. And I know that the ACC, they really botched this up, and they're correcting that mistake, by the way. They know they botched it, but they're correcting that mistake because there shouldn't have been, the way this whole thing was designed, it was designed to give one G5 team a chance, not really two, and when this whole thing exploded, I was like, okay, there's going to be one shot for a G5 team in this expanded playoff every year, which at least is access, something that was previously had and then taken away. Keep in mind, and honestly, the reason the whole Memphis Spence, claim to fame in the football thing is, here I am covering the Big East, right? And then it explodes. We're going to go play basketball and take our name with us. Okay. Well, if you go do that, then the Americans should have the auto bid, right? No. Well, wait a minute. Why wouldn't they? You're saying that taking Georgetown off of, and leaving all these football schools over here is and that's kind of exploded everything. Everything since that point has led up to what we see now. And there was a while where the BCS computers, and I used to be a big fan of those because at least there was some sort of semblance of something that made sense. But there was a while where the BCS computers actually did a really good job at taking bias out of the game. And, there are analysts like me that try to do that, but I'm human. I still have some biases. Maybe not as much as other fans or whatever, but as a professional analyst, I still have some biases. And sometimes I can't take those out, but a computer can. And I think what the college football playoff now is, it's designed to try and eliminate biases or try to at least account for said biases. But the problem is the biases are now all at the top. They're at the people in the room making the decision, right? Back to that. And not using the computers as we should. So JMU is kind of a culmination of it's actually two errors. It's an error by the ACC, which I'm sure Jim Phillips fully admits, like, look, we messed that up. I don't know how Duke was playing for this championship or whatnot, but maybe they shouldn't have been, or there should have been something where the ACC champion gets in regardless, because I don't think there was a world that we thought that, you could take, the top five and the ACC champ not be one of the top five kind of ranked in the poll. But here we are. The American champion, I always thought the American champion in most years was going to get in. That's why I didn't have any issues with, Memphis staying the American. I was like, oh, okay, we just sit around. We have money. But this is an actual path that we can actually get into the football playoff, and we didn't really have that before. So any team from the American, Tulane representing this year, because they beat us, they're probably going to get in most years. I would say 8 out of 10 years, they're probably going to get in because out of the G5, G6, if you want to call it that, they're the strongest conference year in and year out. Sun Belt being second to that.
Mountain, it's interesting too because I feel like the Mountain West with Boise the last couple of years has made a claim, but now with Mountain West, I feel like
when
the
Boise's
West,
good, they're good. UNLV is going to make that push, but then after that, I'm like, to your point, Craig, you got a couple of teams at the top. I don't know what they have underneath.
And I'm not talking about the depth, but like what I also think is going to hurt Boise, is going to hurt UNLV, is how Pac-12 and the Mountain West have cannibalized themselves, where I think that does help to insulate and put the American at a better spot, because it just, again, we're lacking that depth. We're lacking that big punch there. So, I guess this would be the last time probably we have 2 G6 teams in. So,
well, I think it will be too, because we have different structure, and here's what we need to understand: this thing is going to continue to evolve, and we can't wait for it. Rapid react every single year because we're freaking out.
Why not?
This is the first time because
good content, Rob.
Yeah, okay, I understand that. That's fine, and you can create great content all you want. In fact, let's just for one more time for everybody's viewing pleasure. Here's Craig's great content from last night, claiming that Notre Dame should be in, and that
but
Alabama
here's
did
the
not
thing:
show up
was
for the
I
game.
wrong? Was I wrong at that point? Was I wrong at that point?
Yes, you were absolutely wrong at that point, and you are wrong now at this point.
Yes.
But
I should have waited for Kalen DeBoer to get off, and get off the schneid.
Here's my point. Next year we have a different structure. Speaking of Notre Dame,
it's true.
They have different assurances. We have different assurances in terms of how the conference champions are going to be included in this playoff next year. So yes, Craig, it may be the only time that we get to fly like a G6 teams into the college football playoff, because the structure continues to evolve and change. And do any of us seriously sit here and think that we're not going to 16 in the very near future? And then that's going to change the structure as well. It's going to change the structure of who gets in. It's going to change the structure of how this first round is set up, because now we're getting reports that we're going to run it like a play-in and do 13 versus 16 and 14 versus 15. And it's going to continue.
I know, but that's probably not what do we want that? See, I think we keep getting away from the actual message. And the message has always been this: people like to watch the best teams have a chance to actually win a championship. With 4, we probably got that. I grew up in when I was in high school and college, there were 2 teams that got to play for a championship. There wasn't 4. There wasn't, So, and honestly, for a while, even before that, when I was in high school and grade school or whatnot, people like me used to pick them, like FWAA. Yeah, we'll decide who the champion is. You got the same record, we'll decide. And
talk about bias.
Nah, exactly. Because there was a lot of sway given for different reasons back then. But the computers helped kind of clean a lot of that up, kind of give some sort of, accounting of what actually happened, what we're actually seeing on the field, because PR is crazy. I can probably look around my office and give you 4 to 8 things at any given time that are from all of your schools. Your PR departments are working hard to try and say, hey, Iowa's great at it. Hey, here's a pen and pad. We know you take a lot of notes. We just want to make sure that Iowa's on that pad every time you're voting for the Bronco Nagurski Award, or anytime you're taking notes during the game, Spence. I know you're voting for the Maxwell. Here's here's an Alabama pen for you. You know what I'm saying? Let me make sure that our QB is on your mind when you're taking these stuff. I mean, that's what happens. And the teams usually with the most money and the best PR are the ones on the minds of the journalists because they give us stuff or whatnot. They put stuff in front of us all the time. So when we look around, we see those teams. But that's not really what we should be evaluating, right? We shouldn't be evaluating the PR of each team. We should be evaluating what happens on the field. And it's the hours and hours. And like I said, people criticize me all the time. I'm like, okay, cool. You put in 30 hours a week reviewing film. And everybody's like, oh, they shut up. I'm like, oh, you put in that? Yes, all of us do. That's how you get here. You put in the work. And once you do that, and once you start evaluating the teams, then maybe it's possible to take the names off. JMU is one of those teams. People forget. That's where Cignetti came from. We were just talking about, Cignetti's over here winning. You're like, well, how is he doing that? He's winning with players. They're recruiting well. Why is he being able to do that? Because he's put in a system. I was like, he's going to do the same thing at Indiana. I know a lot of people, and believe me, here we are. He's in the college football playoff with Indiana and won a Big Ten championship. And now everybody's like, oh, there's people on Twitter like, you were the first one that called that. I was like, I couldn't have been the first one that called that. There's got to be other people that can see this stuff before me. I'm just a small little analyst. There are people working for at Fox that do this, and I'm sure they're better than me. Or at least hope so. But anyway, to get to your point, there's small variations between these that are getting smaller and smaller as we introduce stuff into the system, like the transfer portal. Cignetti was never a big recruiter. I mean, he recruited okay at Alabama, but Alabama recruits itself. And keep in mind, that's where he was winning championships with Nick Saban back in the day. You know what I'm saying? And that's where it comes. If you're a school, if you're a fan of this or a school of the game, or a fan of the game, or like me, you always watch the progression of how and where people are coming from. But he didn't really recruit back then. But the transfer portal for guys like him, it's perfect. He has a playbook. He knows what he wants to do. Let me get this guy. It's like going to Kroger's. Let me pick this guy out. That'll work well. I don't have to fly around the country. They're already there in the portal for me. Already partially developed or maybe even fully developed talent sitting right there for me. That's going to, the minute the transfer portal was integrated into the sport, completely changed the game. Completely changed the game and how we're actually going to play this game, because it's not free agency, but in a way it is. There's a lot less work that if you're a really good talent evaluator, Cignetti is, then you're able to actually look at guys and say, this guy would work perfect in my system. And now you start, now you've created basically a system where you have two types of teams. You have teams that develop players and then teams that use players well. Now, if you're doing both well, then you're Indiana and you're in the college football playoff. If you're a team that just recruits well and develops players well, you might be like a Memphis, got a lot of players in the NFL, not going to the playoffs though, right? And there's always teams that are just like, hey, like even Coach Prime, he was using the portal really well for a while and got we haven't talked about Colorado nationally in football since the 80s, right? And all of a sudden we're at Colorado, you're looking at the charts and like, look at this. Colorado is beating out Georgia versus Florida in ratings. And broadcasters like me take note of that because the advertisers do, right? So, you're just like, well, how is he doing that? And, all of a sudden we have a Heisman candidate and this guy's on my Maxwell voting list. Portal, he's able to develop a little bit, but he's using the portal just like Cignetti. And guys like that weren't coaching back in the day because they couldn't. It wasn't possible to do what they're doing now because they weren't necessarily great recruiters, but they're pretty good with development and schemes. And now you're taking team coaches that are really good with developments and schemes, a lot of coordinators that wouldn't be head coaches. and now you're putting them in a position where they can actually win. And that's
Yep.
what we've seen change over the last 5 years.
And to your point about Signetti, and we're up against the break, and we're going to get out of here in just a second, but he portals in a lot of his JMU roster last year to Indiana and gets it done in that way. But then this year upgraded the talent by going and picking some guys from the Power Four and other places to really upgrade that roster in year 2, and you see where it gets him. Spence, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Really quick, 30 seconds before we get to this break. Who has a better chance of winning today from the G5, Tulane or JMU?
Tulane definitely has a better chance of winning, but don't be surprised if JMU keeps it close. There's some wrinkles that I see that I'm like, ooh, this actually might work against Oregon. Let's see if it does. Shout out to Amanda. I think she's listening from overseas. I think she's at London. But shout out to her and whatnot. Shout out to a lot of the folks that always follow me around on these little apps and everything else. And shout out to you guys. You guys are doing a great job with this show. Appreciate the invite.
Thank you, Meth.
Well, we could never do it without your insights and your help behind the scenes as well. So we appreciate you and the advice that you've given us through the years now at this point, right? All right, this is SEC Sunday Night. He's Memphis Spence. Thanks a lot, Spence, for coming in with us. Let's hit this break, Craig, and we'll come back and maybe we'll see if we'll take his advice when we pick these games. We'll be right back.
When playing sports, you want a coach that will fight for you. At Hewitt Diamaduros Law Firm, we've got your back. Whether it's personal injury, insurance disputes, negligence, or wrongful death, our team delivers exceptional legal services that makes meaningful difference in the lives of the individuals and families we work for. Visit hdlawsc.com. hdlawsc.com. Hewitt Diamaduros, we're on your team.
Oh, man, the building is on fire.
Emergencies and accidents happen. When you're in the middle of a fire or water event, all you want is for things to return to normal as soon as possible. Resto Pros of the Midlands is with you, guiding you through the process and working with you to get your home or office back in working order. They'll answer your questions, discuss procedures, and can act as your advocate when it comes to processing your insurance claim. Resto Pros Midlands SC.com. Open 24/7 when you need them. Quality that is guaranteed.
At TriFit Physical Therapy and Performance, we believe true health and peak performance start with personalized care. Whether you're an athlete recovering from injury or just chasing your next personal best, we're here to guide your journey. With expert coaching, hands-on therapy, and transparent cash-based pricing, you get the care you need without the insurance red tape. One client drove 100 miles just to see us and said it was worth every mile. Contact us at trifitperformance.com or 803-353-5619. TriFit Physical Therapy and Performance, where recovery meets results.
Yo, what's up?
Baby, let's go!
Welcome back to SEC Sunday Night live on the Chief Sports Network on a Saturday morning as we prepare for the matchups today. Craig, we have 3 games ahead of us, and at noon, 11 Central, we have Texas A&M hosting Miami. Let's go through and give some predictions here, because I want to tee us up for some quality I was wrong material, as we will be back tomorrow night in our normal time slot at 8 p.m. to break down the entirety of the weekend. We talked a little bit about Oklahoma and Alabama. We may have some more discussion there as it pertains to looking forward to that conversation between or that matchup between Bama and Indiana. Craig, Texas A&M, Miami, what's your score prediction? I want to hear from you. I'm going to save mine for Joy at the end of the next hour.
Yeah, sure. So my key to this game is Carson Beck. If Carson Beck can light up the Aggies, then Miami wins. But as someone who has covered Carson Beck for 3 years, Carson Beck does not play well on the road. does not do well in loud environments. I expect at least 2.5 turnovers. I expect the Aggies to win 31-17 today in College Station.
There you have it, 31-17 from Craig. I should probably be writing that down so that I can go back and tell him how wrong he is tomorrow night at 8 p.m. All right, Ole Miss hosting Tulane. We just had Spence in to talk about these fly like a G6 teams. You tell me where you at on the Rebels.
To me, I think Pete Golding, this is your opportunity to shine. There's been a lot of Lane Kiffin talk. There's been a lot of Lane Kiffin noise. The Rebs are going with the Navy uniforms, with the gray. They're kind of going that old school look. They've ditched the powder blues. I think that they're going to line up and they're going to have an edge, and they're going to want to make a statement. They're going to want to make a statement that's going to be heard down in Baton Rouge. I think that it could be close for a quarter or so. But again, I'm thinking, why not just say it? 31-17 Rebs over the Green Wave.
All right, so we're going the same score. Last matchup here, we had Emily on earlier to talk about Oregon. You and I have both said this week that we think Oregon's going to hammer JMU. This is the biggest spread, 21-point favorites for the Ducks. What do you think? How do you think it plays out? What's the final score in Eugene?
Oregon is going to be the 2024 Ohio State. I think again the team that was underlooked heading into the playoffs. I think they make a big statement. I am not saying they win the national championship, but I do say that they're coming in underrated. I think people are overlooking them, and I think Dan Lanning is going to want to make a statement. Look for nice fuel of Dan Lanning's energy to come full and through. I'm thinking 42-7 Oregon over
42-7. And now it's time for the crossover as Joy comes in wide-eyed. Good morning, Joy. How are you? And welcome in as we get ready to transition. I wanted to give you two incredible friends an opportunity to interact here for 60 seconds as we make the transition from SEC Sunday Night to the SEC Pretty Hour here live on the Chief Sports Network.
Uh-oh. Can't hear you.
Joy is muted, so we're going to work on that for just a minute. Did you say 42 or 41-7, Craig?
42-7. 42. We're just going touch.
Craig, that's insane.
Oh, she got it.
That's insane.
What's insane?
42-7. Craig, you've lost your mind.
Wait, am I wrong? I'm saying Oregon's going to win. Why is that wrong? Have we seen
42-7? Craig.
Yes.
Craig, I know that you live in Michigan and that's all dysfunctional right now, but it shouldn't affect your brain this badly.
It's too much.
Why I knew we needed 2 minutes of crossover. I knew we needed it. Okay, Craig,
I think it's going to be great.
Enjoy your day, my friend. It's a pleasure as always to do everything with you, and we'll be back tomorrow night at 8 p.m. to see how that prediction turns out. Right, 42-7. I've got all of your scores written down. I got my scores written down.
Can I get
I'm gonna write down Joy's scores.
Joy? Yeah.
What?
Can I get one go dogs from?
What's that?
Get one go dogs from Joy before I go?
You can indeed. Go Dogs.
Fantastic. Have a great show. I know you guys are going to like it. Bye.
Disgusting. All right, we'll see you. All right, Joy. It's time. Let's hit the music, and we'll be right back here with the SEC Pretty Hour on SEC Sunday Night on the Chief Sports Network.
OTC is go. Packet is go. CTC is go. LPS is go. Houston flight is go. Pilot go. STM is go. Safety comms is go. STU is go. LRD is go. SRO is go. CDI is go. Launch director, NTD, our launch team is ready to proceed at this time.
It's SEC Sunday Night, presented by Hewitt Diamandouros. Visit hdlawsc.com. It's go time.
Welcome back. Now it's me that's muted. Good morning, Joy. First of all, good morning. Good morning. How are you? What's going on? How are you enjoying so far? We're one game into the college football playoff.
Good morning, Rob. So far, I'm having a grand old time. Anytime that you get to see fans overreact, i.e., Notre Dame fans, to one quarter of college football, and then come back to eat their words 3 quarters later, it's always a great day to be a fan of college football.
You know, we've had some great discussion about that so far this morning. For those of you watching, this will be a little redundant, but I know, Joy, you just got here, so you didn't get to see this earlier. Featured presentation in the beginning of our show this morning was not just Notre Dame fans, but Craig making a big statement about the Irish and the Tide. Did not work out well for him in the long run, but that's okay. It didn't work out well for a lot of people who decided to let their Twitter fingers go to work in the first quarter yesterday. You and I were texting not on a public forum, thankfully for you, because you were a little hyped up about Boomer Sooner as well.
I was celebrating, but in no way, shape, or form did I think the game was over, because
correct.
I, of all people, am aware of the fact that at any given time, at any given moment, Alabama can pull out a win.
And to your credit, you sent that just as they were about to score the first touchdown, and we could kind of see things were going to shift a little bit. Hey, watch out and see what's going to happen here as they get ready to go. What were your thoughts overall over the course of the game? Obviously, extremely entertaining football game. Looked like it was going to get out of hand on us early, and then a big swing, and actually a 10-point victory in the other direction, which is kind of crazy. We said here yesterday that 24 was probably the cap of where Oklahoma's offense was going to go. Man, was I spot on with that. And that's exactly the number that Alabama needed to get to. Turns out 27 points on offense and a little gift from John Mateer to get them an extra touchdown and some breathing room. Got it done. As you watch this thing, what jumps off the page to you in terms of both of these teams?
I think the biggest thing, I was actually talking about this morning, is that we have for years been sold on the fact that Brent Venables is this insane defensive mind. And it looked like that in the first quarter. And I think I even publicly tweeted something about Kane Womack, because there was a lack of movement, a lack of change on Alabama's defensive side of the ball. And then as the game went on, Kane Womack made continual adjustments. I mean, he was adjusting until literally the last play of the game. And Brent Venables and Oklahoma's defense completely crumbled, and it looked like there was absolutely no adjustments being made on that side of the ball. I think, we talked a lot about the offense because we were talking about John Mateer and his injury and whether Ty Simpson was going to be able to get it done. Like, there were obviously some question marks there. But I think the bigger thing for me is, like, these are two programs that have prided themselves on what they do on the defensive side of the ball. And I was so disappointed at the end of the night with the product that Brent Venables and Oklahoma put on the field throughout 4 quarters. If this was a 1-quarter game, yeah, they did great. But the reality of it is that you've been able to beat Alabama twice, and it's been because of your defense both times. And you lost your identity in the game last night.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me because they were, as much as Alabama still didn't have the best night running the football, there were enough moments, like you said, late in this game where they were able to get it going from a rushing standpoint, which was probably the most impressive thing. Now, I just said that we're going to talk tomorrow night a little bit about what this matchup looks like for Bama going forward. I think they're going to need more out of their running game each round, right? Like it's not, they're not going to be able to get by against Indiana with what they did last night. But I do think it was obviously enough and kind of made the difference for them. We know what Ty Simpson can do. I think that the inability to get to him consistently over the course of the night was a big thing as well. And at some point, these uber athletic wide receivers were going to make a play, and Jeremy Bernard showed up and made that play, right? But if Alabama's receivers could catch the ball consistently at Ryan Williams, I think that this would have been even worse. Like they would have been able to march down the field a lot more easily. And we've seen those inconsistencies over the past few weeks from that receiving core, which is kind of concerning for me if you're an Alabama fan moving forward in this playoff, because if you're not going to get quality running game, you're at least going to need those guys to make plays when they're there. And Ty Simpson put the ball in good places for the plays to be made, and it just didn't always happen for them. So not trying to be a downer on the Tide at this point, but obviously you're looking forward to the next round if you're an Alabama fan. And now you have a matchup with the number 1 seed in the country and undefeated Indiana team. And I don't think that's going to be an easy task for anybody as it stands going up against Indiana, who appears to maybe be the most complete team in the country at this.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think there's a lack of identity from Alabama right now, and I think that you see that across every form of the game. So you see that from their team, you see that from their coaching staff, you see that from their fan base. Who Alabama used to be, this brand that when they showed up, you were immediately fearful of them. They were going to play down and dirty defense. Their wide receivers were going to catch insane throws. Things that we're used to seeing Alabama doing, they're not doing. And I think there was obviously a lot of question, specifically about this game, about whether honestly both teams were deserving of being in the college football playoff. I think after the product that they put on the field last night, they both have proven that they absolutely deserve to be there. But the reality is I don't know that either one of those teams is capable of winning a national championship. And for Alabama, I think that at the core of that is an identity issue. There is a lot of smoke around the whole DeBoer to Michigan thing. Obviously, we don't know how much that's playing a role. I think that Alabama's really lacking identity. We're seeing, I think this is maybe one of the first times that you're really seeing the shift from the Saban era to the DeBoer era. And maybe this is just how Alabama's going to be moving forward because they won't carry the aura that comes with a Nick Saban as their head coach. But I just think their lack of identity and their questioning of who exactly they are this late in the season is only going to end up giving you issues as you continue on throughout the college football playoff.
Yeah, I think that's a great point that we can't and never should. I just made this point about the evolution of the college football playoff as a whole. It's going to change from year to year, and I think at some point, like, it's not realistic to say that fans aren't going to say crazy things and that we are not going to say crazy things as show hosts or analysts or whoever we have on and we're talking to as it moves from year to year. But as I step back and look at the bigger picture, I can see this thing has a lot of evolving to do. Like, this is only the second year that we've had a 12-team playoff. And it's understandable that there are things that we didn't get right in the way that we structured it moving into this format. And when they move to 16, inevitably, the same thing will happen, right? Like, they're going to get things wrong. There's going to be things that are glaring that we say from the jump that we're screaming, hey, don't do that. Don't do that. Let's do it this way. And maybe it takes learning the hard way to figure that out. But the reality is we can't shake out all of the wrinkles until you actually play it out on the field.
No doubt.
The same thing is true with Kalen DeBoer moving from a Nick Saban to a Kalen DeBoer. The realistic perspective is nobody was going to be Nick Saban. Nobody could produce at that level. And everybody has said that. Everybody knows that it's not going to be the same Alabama. Yet for some reason, there's this stigma and this aura around them because of the success under Nick Saban that creates an expectation that I think is unfair and unrealistic. And that, unfortunately, casts a light on Kalen DeBoer, where over the course of his career, he's been phenomenally successful. But now we have this kind of negativity and, is he the right guy? Is it a good fit? I don't think they could have hired anybody better. But the narrative around it is always going to be skewed because he followed Nick Saban. And that just is what it is. And unless he goes and wins 6 national championships, we're always going to have that conversation. Even if he wins 2 or 3, he's still not going to be Nick Saban. And so I think it creates an interesting dynamic. And I think that's why there's a little bit of smoke around the Michigan job, because you'd be following up a completely different situation if you walked into Ann Arbor as opposed to following the GOAT and Nick Saban in Tuscaloosa. All right. Let's talk a little bit about environments, because you've been across the SEC all season long. We've had you on for segments as you've moved from town to town. You have a lot of experience in general in a lot of these different not just tailgates, but in the stadiums themselves. We saw that environment in Norman last night. Speak to that just a little bit in terms of what do you think they were able to bring? I know they told fans to show up super early. They had the light show. There was a whole new kind of setup. Hosting a playoff game, I think, is a privilege, and we're going to get to that in a little while. But what do you see out of Norman, and what are your expectations then for College Station and Oxford today? Did we get the best of the best last night because it was a night game? Does that take away from Kyle Field? I have so many thoughts about the different environments that we're seeing across the SEC in round 1.
Yeah, I think that there's something to be said about night games in the SEC. I think that across the board, you never hear coaches complaining because they're always getting night games. Like, and I can say this, he's now my head coach. All Lane Kiffin griped about last season was the fact that he was never going to get to play a night game because LSU was getting all the night games. And the reality is that when you have a night game environment that is substantially better than everywhere else, you get the benefit of those night games. I think we're probably seeing something, and I don't know how much is being talked about, that is really impacting games today, and that is the fact that we do have NFL games tonight, and that there are some question marks about the quality of the games that we're going to see today because there are 2 group of 5 teams in the playoffs, and one of these games is a game that's already happened. So we've already seen Tulane and Ole Miss play. Ole Miss beat the tar out of Tulane. Obviously, Craig doesn't think James Madison's going to do anything tonight. And I think the fact that James Madison and Oregon are going to have to fight for TV time with some games outside of college football that could be just as entertaining. Is probably why they're in the time slot that they're in. I think of all of these environments, I would give A&M probably the largest home field advantage of any of the 3. I also think A&M is playing in the most meaningful game. I think they are playing the opponent that is the toughest. I think they're playing the opponent that's actually proven that they deserve to be there, not was given an automatic bid there. But to get the most eyes, which is always what everyone will care about because eyes equals money, they're going to give A&M the noon spot. And while I don't necessarily think that's the most fair to A&M, I think if there's a team in the college football playoff that's really earned the full home field advantage, it is A&M. I think they probably should have the night game, but I understand from a money and rating standpoint why it's at the time that it is. Is it fair to A&M? Probably not. Do I want good things for A&M? Not necessarily, but I am aware of the fact that there's a lot that goes into this, and they probably are, from an unbiased standpoint, getting a little bit of the short end of the stick here.
Yeah, I think, we talked about this a little bit earlier, and I'll throw the graphic up one more time. Our friend Tyler Markley at Projection Sports does a great job. I love these daily kind of schedules that we get in top basketball matchups. We talked about at the end of the hour with Craig and I, we had Memphis Spence on and kind of talked about how this programming all comes together. We'll also note, Joy, that these afternoon games and evening games, the 3:30 and the 7:30, which is Ole Miss and Tulane, Oregon and James Madison, are on TNT, True TV, HBO Max, not on the ESPN family of networks, which is very interesting. ESPN has the Friday night and the Saturday noon, and you get the 2 best matchups. So obviously a little bit there about who was picking those games. I made the point earlier, and you backed it up beautifully there. There's so much going on here, right? Maybe you're flipping back and forth. Spence made a good point that, maybe you're a Memphis person, so you care about Ole Miss a little bit. And so you're watching the Memphis Mississippi State basketball game there, and you're flipping over to the Ole Miss Tulane football game. You're going back and forth. If you're on a platform that allows you to quad box, then those may be in your setup. But for me, and you said this, you have 2 rivalry divisional matchups in the NFL, which we know is the trump card. It beats everything. It doesn't matter that this is college football playoff round 1 and that all of the college football world is zeroed in and locked on those games. The NFL can come in and dominate. And 2 games on Fox, Philly and Washington, and then Green Bay and Chicago, which is a huge matchup in terms of how that playoff picture is going to develop in the NFC. There's going to be a lot of eyes on that. And so it is interesting how it sets up. I'm excited to see what happens at Kyle Field today, because I think that they are going to be, because of the matchup and because of their history and their inability to kind of get to this point and the historic type of season that they're having under Mike Elko and the way that it is kind of just blossomed out there, albeit not ending the season exactly how they wanted to, but you get an opportunity to rewrite the narrative. If you go in and win this game against Miami as a Texas A&M team, and you go and make a little bit of a run, even one win, I think winning that opening round game goes a long way for any of these programs, because it's not just making it. Like, let's talk about Tennessee a little bit from last year, right? Made the college football playoff, gets curb stomped by Ohio State, and they're out. And, they had an okay year this year, bad on offense, bad defense. They fired the defensive coordinator. They're making a big move. They go get Knowles. But has anybody talked this year about Tennessee in the college football playoff last year? It's been kind of a forgotten point. Why? Because they slid in, they got beat in the first round, and nobody's talking about it. So they can hang the banner, and they should. And I think that you're going to start to see this. I've heard this argument many times. We're going to start to see college football playoff appearance banners like you have Sweet 16 banners or Elite 8 banners in basketball arenas. When teams get in, it's going to be, or just like, I'm going to say this and you're really going to roll your eyes, but programs putting in putting up banners on the outfield wall, they made it to Omaha, or that there's how many super regionals they've won, or how many regionals that they've won, and then how many national championships they've won, and kind of having all those things stacked up. It's going to be used as a recruiting tool.
People do that? I didn't know that people did that.
If you have visuals, well, when you've won, when
we only have them for our national championships. Eight banners is just, it's a lot. We don't have room for all the super regionals and regionals that we won. We have to hang all our bodies.
Well, what you do is you just put one banner for supers and then put all the years on there, so that when people walk in, they can see how many you've won.
Got it. Lame.
It's a recruiting tool, and it's gonna happen at quote unquote B tier football programs as well, because when recruits walk in and see, oh, you've been to the college football playoff in 2016, 2019, and 2025, there's some consistency to you showing up and having a chance if you're a player there. So I think that'll be an interesting thing as we move forward. But back to the environments, I think the Grove will be great today, but I don't know necessarily what's happening in Vaught Hemingway. Here's my question: with no Lane Kiffin, what is the air that gets taken out of that stadium? I don't think you or I, either one, can answer that question. I think we just have to tune in and watch. You're playing Tulane. You've already beaten the crap out of them one time this year. You made a mention of that. So I just don't know how raucous of an environment it's going to be. But I can make an argument on the flip side that just like Texas A&M, Ole Miss has scratched and clawed to get to this point to where they're going to be in the college football playoff and fans are going to show up. And this is a big deal. That is exactly the type of program that needs to put a banner up that says college football playoff 2025. What year is it? And if they win, and they're going to win the game, and so then they'll have a second banner that says second round appearances, and you start just stacking years on there, just like in your high schools when you have all the years that there was a wrestling state champion or girls volleyball state champion or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. I mean, Ole Miss can absolutely hang a banner for an appearance the same way they have a banner that says SEC West champions for a year they never won the SEC West. But that's beside the point. All that to say, I do think Ole Miss fans will show up today. I think they feel betrayed by Lane Kiffin. I think they feel like they have something to prove. I think they want to show that Oxford is a special place and that Ole Miss is a special place. And the reality of it is that Lane sent his entire offensive staff back to Oxford. So outside of Lane, that staff is the same staff they've had all season long. And I expect those players to show up and want to play to prove that they were a program worth staying around for. And so I think Ole Miss will be fine. I don't think any environment is going to touch Kyle Field today, if I'm being completely honest. And part of that, Rob, is like what we just talked about. That matchup is so much more extreme. A&M fans have never been there. They have the pride and belief system that they should be there every year. And they want nothing more than to go into Kyle Field and do horns down over and over and over again, regardless of the fact that Texas isn't even in the playoff. And they want to prove to everybody that they're the best school in the state. And they've earned the right to do that. And I don't know that I have, when I went to A&M this year, like, I have to give them so many props. They will fill their stadium regardless of who they're playing. But the fact that they're playing in a college football playoff game, like, just takes it to a whole nother level.
Yep. And as you talk about that matchup, obviously there's a lot to be discussed. I caught up with Cole Kublik earlier this week to talk about the matchups of the day and specifically all the variables that exist in that matchup in College Station and what's missing in Oxford with a Lane Kiffin-less Rebels team. It's 9:24 here on the Chief Sports Network. We're going to hit a break, and we'll be right back with Cole Kublik.
At TriFit Physical Therapy and Performance, we believe true health and peak performance start with personalized care. Whether you're an athlete, recovering from injury, or just chasing your next personal best, we're here to guide your journey. With expert coaching, hands-on therapy, and transparent cash-based pricing, you get the care you need without the insurance red tape. One client drove 100 miles just to see us and said it was worth every mile. Contact us at trifitperformance.com or 803-353-5619. TriFit Physical Therapy and Performance, where recovery meets results.
When playing sports, you want a coach that will fight for you. At Hewitt Diamaduros Law Firm, we've got your back. Whether it's personal injury, insurance disputes, negligence, or wrongful death, our team delivers exceptional legal services that makes meaningful difference in the lives of the individuals and families we work for. Visit hdlawse.com. hdlawse.com. Hewitt Diamaduros, we're on your team. Is SEC Sunday night on the Chief Sports Network.
How's it going? Merry Christmas. How are we looking forward to the college football playoff round one?
I'm looking forward to it. I think, there's a couple of teams and games that you look at and not really sure that they're going to be competitive games. Interested to see how those goes, kind of how JMU and Tulane approach this, especially with their coaches moving on. What's the level of distraction going to be like? How's that going to appear? And I think we got a couple other matchups that could be pretty intriguing.
Yeah, so 5 SEC teams in the first round or in the college football playoff. By the time this airs, we'll be down to 4 because Alabama and Oklahoma will have already played. Let's start with Ole Miss. You mentioned the distraction of Tulane. How much of a distraction do you believe, based on what you're hearing and what we can gather, is in Oxford? Obviously, the biggest headline of the season, the off season perhaps, as well as Lane Kiffin moves to Baton Rouge. You got some of the coaching staff left over. What about the players? How locked in are they on this opportunity? Are they fired up about Pete Golding, or is there still some lingering distraction that keeps their minds distant as 17.5-point favorites against Tulane?
No, I think you have to be fired up. One, I think most players that I've been around that have been around Pete love him, and I think they're going to want to help him. They're going to want to prove that they can win under him. I think probably a few that feel a little bit jaded by Lane Kiffin, so they want to go prove wrong that they can't win without him. Also, you're in the college football playoff, and these players know what's in front of them. They know the opportunity that they now have. They're not going to waste that sitting around, sulking about a coach leaving or an assistant leaving, or they're not going to have this or that. They have a chance to make a national title run. So I don't look at the distraction from an Ole Miss perspective as one that's going to be detrimental to them in this game. I think they know who they are. They know what they have. They know where the matchup advantages are against Tulane. I do think it's a different Tulane team that they got last time around. That was very early in the season. They've come a long way since, but it's an Ole Miss team that I think has a lot to prove for a lot of different reasons. I don't think the distractions will be an issue for them.
As we look at the actual game, obviously you talk about matchups and you've got players on the field. And I think Ole Miss obviously is going to have an advantage in terms of personnel. One advantage Ole Miss has had all year has been kind of the game day magic of Lane Kiffin calling plays. That will not be present with them in the playoff. Do you see anywhere that we may be able to see that disadvantage, or is Charlie Weiss Jr. going to step in and fill the shoes perfectly to keep this offense clicking where it needs to be? How much of a factor is not having Lane Kiffin on that sideline on Saturday and beyond? Because we know if they get past Tulane, you got a rematch with Georgia coming up.
Yeah, I'm not going to say it's not going to be meaningless because Lane Kiffin's been the head coach, and he's the one that has done things there that hadn't been done either ever or since, Vaught was the head coach. So, but Charlie Weiss Jr. runs the offense. Like, he called the plays. He's been calling the plays. So I don't think that from a play calling or understanding of the offense or understanding situational football is going to be any different. Are there adjustments that Lane has made at certain points in time, things that he's seen? Yeah, absolutely. And we know he's an offensive savant. So that's an advantage having him. Anytime you have an elite offensive mind on your staff, that's a huge advantage. So he provides that. But I think also you got a guy in Trinidad Chambliss that's played a lot of football and not as much at Ole Miss, but I mean, he's been their guy for a while now. He knows what this offense is. He knows what they're capable of. You have a running back in Keywan Lacey that you can always go lean on. The offensive line's gotten better. You don't have to necessarily make high-risk throws to find explosive plays in this offense. So I think it'll just come down to execution. It'll come down to the awareness and sort of figuring out how Tulane wants to play them. If they're doing something different, noticing those things early in the game. And also, too, I think with Pete Golding, like we had Ole Miss in their first game of the season this year. And Lane did a great job going out of his way to compliment Pete Golding on how he had helped him become a better coach, understanding all of it, understanding how to protect the defense, situational football, when to just hand the football off a couple of times, how to recruit different players, what players needed to be recruited, what type of guys they needed more of. And Lane, I think, had a little bit of tunnel vision before that. So Pete Golding's ready for this opportunity. He's been around high-level coaches, high-level teams. He understands it. Is he a very different personality than Lane? Absolutely. Probably polar opposite. But when it comes to football, he loves it. He knows it as well as anybody I've ever been around. And I think Pete Golding's going to be successful.
One question I want to ask before we shift to Texas A&M and Miami is this. I think that Ole Miss has an incredible opportunity to keep themselves hot and to get warmed up under this kind of new look without Lane Kiffin. As you said, you're not really losing anything from an effective standpoint in terms of calling the plays. You're going to have Pete Golding making the head coaching decisions. But I'm looking at that second round. Last year we saw all four teams that got a bye week lose that game. Is there an opportunity here for Ole Miss or for any of these teams who are playing in the first round? I'm looking at Oregon as well to match up against JMU to really keep things hot and come in that second round against a team that's kind of been sitting around for weeks. Is there a disadvantage to the bye weeks at this point?
No, because I think health and depth are still critical and maybe more important than anything at this point in time. I mean, we saw some of Alabama's offensive linemen, tight end, that were beat up, dinged up. Some of their defensive front that was a little bit dinged up against Georgia in the SEC championship game. Those things are massive to be able to get those guys back close to 100%. You're not always able to find enough time to be able to do that before these huge football games. Those teams will have opportunity. Now, you look at it from a matchup perspective. I mean, Ole Miss played with Georgia earlier this season. That game was tight going into the fourth quarter. So it's not like they can't play with them. They can absolutely find a way to get to that game and win it. Now, I think a lot of things are going to have to go their way, similar to what's going to happen with Miami and A&M if they were playing Ohio State. Like, I wouldn't just love either one of those teams against Ohio State, but with that defense that A&M is going to put out there, the defensive line that Miami is going to put out there, quarterbacks that can push the ball down the field, playmakers on offense, two good offensive lines, could they find their way? Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I think from an Oregon perspective, it doesn't matter. I think Oregon will beat Texas Tech. So I'm not real concerned about that. And I don't think that plays into the whole bye week, not a bye week, whatever. I think they're a better team. So I think it's all about matchups. It's styles of fight. And you get to these type games where the talent is fairly equal. What can you do to remove another team's strength? And what do you have as a strength that other teams just can't find a way to do anything about? Like, you look at the Ohio State receivers, you look at Oklahoma front seven, you look at that A&M third down package. What do you have that nobody can offset, that nobody can do anything about? And, you look at a team like Indiana, you like them more because they might not be as dominant in that one or two facets, but they're B plus A minus across the board at everything. I think they're the most well-rounded team in this tournament. That's why I picked them to win it. But I think, too, once you get into these settings, how do you offset what the other team's great at? And if you have the opportunity to take that away or take advantage to win, it's not all on bye week, off week, playing at home, not at home. Health is huge. So to have an extra opportunity to get more healthy, I'll never say that that's not to the benefit of one of those teams.
All right, it's SEC Sunday Night Live on the Chief Sports Network, proudly presented by Hewitt Damaduros Law, hdlawsc.com, joined by Cole Kubelik of the SEC Network. And Cole, as we look to this noon matchup here in College Station, I think we've said it a million times here on our show, and I'll continue to say this game is the most intriguing to me because I think it has the most variables. There are so many things that even after a full season of football that I find slightly unpredictable about both Miami and Texas A&M. Which unit are we going to get? Which version of Carson Beck? Is the pressure too much for him? We've seen the clutch gene with Marcel Reed. We've seen A&M's defense give up 40-plus to Arkansas. We've seen them give up, a lot in the first half against South Carolina and then blank them in the second half. So we've kind of seen this Jekyll and Hyde a little bit. How do you feel like this matchup sets up, and which variables become the most important in Texas A&M and Miami?
There's a lot of them, and you look at the third down defense for Texas A&M, and it's not just Cassius Howell, it's not just Albert Regis and those guys finding a way to get to the quarterback. It's how they align, what they can do to you to get you off your game, out of your game plan, take advantage of your protections. Can Miami be successful, stay ahead of the chains first and second down to not get into those third and longs and try to avoid some of that? Francis Manauga, the best right tackle in college football. That offensive line has opportunities to offset a little bit of that. I think you have a downhill run presence with Mark Fletcher that could also neutralize a little bit of that A&M defense. They have given up some yards on the ground at times, not necessarily consistently, but a team in Miami that is pretty good on third down this year. I think they're top 20 in the country in converting third downs. So that's a matchup that you watch. You mentioned Carson Beck. I think if there's a gettable area of that A&M defense, it is the back end. You've got some speedy receivers that can potentially take advantage of that. When A&M's on the offense, Reuben Bain and Mesidor and company, they know how to get to the quarterback. So we've seen Marcel Reed not necessarily take care of the football last few times out. Somebody who I think is a little bit indecisive at times to be a runner, hang as a passer. When he's decisive, he's great. When he thinks a little bit, he second guesses himself and he pads the football, or he considers not leaving the pocket to stay in the pocket, that's when defenses can take advantage of some of his mistakes. But I think one of the areas, too, is not really being talked about is how this Miami defense can run. And doesn't necessarily mean just from a coverage perspective. I'm not saying that Miami will cover KC Concepcion the entire game or Kevin Coleman the entire game. I think what I'm looking at is just from a speed perspective, this will be one of the faster groups they've played. They have some veterans on the back end of that Miami defense. Can they neutralize a lot of what that's going to bring to the table for the A&M offense? How much will A&M try to lean on the ground game? Because I feel like they've been somewhat Jekyll and Hyde with their personality, their identity this year. Sometimes we've seen them go out, lay the groundwork, offensive line rips, they run the football, that opens up everything else, and that's sort of who they are. Other times, we've seen them kind of be this drop-back football team with Marcel Reed that I don't personally think that they need to be or try to be. I think you use that when it's needed. And when it's not expected, you try to take advantage of it, but you don't live and die there. So I'm interested to see what Colin Klein wants the identity of his offense to be in this game and how successful the A&M offensive line can be. If they can get the run going early and they can slow down some of those pass rushers, they can pick and choose when they want to use Marcel Reed as a runner and not force him to do too much work down the field through the air, then I think that gives A&M a massive advantage in this game.
The last one, Colin, we'll get you out of here. That in that matchup, obviously, there's been a lot of scrutiny of in-game decisions around Mario Cristobal, and then we have this perpetual 8-4 story with Texas A&M continues to be the narrative. They break out of that this year. Who does this game mean more to, the Texas A&M program or the Miami program?
Yeah, I don't think you can leverage that either way because both of these backers, I guess I'll say, I put up a lot of money for these rosters. I don't know from a coach's pressure perspective, like what Mario's done with Miami's been pretty impressive either way. I mean, they were in a pretty bad place when he took them over, and now he had them knocking on the door of the playoff, now in the playoff. Same thing with A&M. The trajectory for that program since Elko took over has been magnificent. So I don't look at it, the pressure as being very different or greater than one for the other. I'd probably look at this from a Miami perspective and say it's a little bit more important because of some of the big game letdowns you've had. Don't feel like Elko's had as many of those at A&M, but I don't feel like it leans heavily one way or the other as far as who needs this or who it's more important for. You're in the college football playoff. That's a massive deal. It's a massive opportunity. So you got to take advantage of it. You don't know if you're going to be back. I mean, as we know, like Dana White says, never let it go to the judges. It's for the most part in the judges' hands every year to get into this tournament. So you don't know how it's going to play out. You look at Notre Dame this year. There's going to be teams like that every year. So being there, finding a way to take advantage of it, I think is huge. And I don't think I could find a way to look at it as more important for A&M or more important for Miami, because I think with how they've been built and the fan bases and the people that they have behind their programs and the people leading their programs, I suspect they'll both be in the mix the next few years to come. I have no reason to think that there'll be any significant drop-off for either.
Very well said. Cole Kublik of the SEC Network. Cole, thanks so much for joining us to give some insights as we look forward to a fantastic Saturday in the first round of the college football playoff.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. This is SEC Sunday Night. We'll be right back after this.
This is SEC Sunday Night, part of the Chief Sports Network.
All right, welcome back to SEC Sunday Night live on the Chief Sports Network. It is the SEC Pretty Hour. We're joined by Daily Joy, not just for a segment, but for the entirety of the hour. Joy, great stuff there from Cole as expected, and really able to break down some of the matchups. I'll start by asking you the same question that I asked him at the end, though, because he kind of played the middle and didn't answer the question. And I understand his perspective and what he had to say, but who stands to benefit more in this noon matchup today? Which program needs this? Is it Texas A&M or is it Miami?
Honestly, I kind of feel for Cole because I don't know if I actually know that answer either, if I'm being honest. I think from a head coaching standpoint, I could probably argue Cristobal needs it more. There has been a lot of conversation about his ability to win when it really matters. I think A&M is more than happy with what Elko is doing and has done in his very short tenure as their head coach. I think they're happy right now with a playoff berth. Obviously, like, you want to go win the whole thing. But the reality is you took A&M further than the University of Texas this year. And at the core of their little brother being, that is what matters to the Aggies. And so I think Mike Elko's job is safe. His recruiting classes are safe. He is at this moment far and away the best program in Texas. So I'm not super concerned about A&M, but I think Cristobal, if we just look at it from a broad view, has had the most negativity thrown towards him as a head coach, and his ability to win when it matters. And so I think walking away from this, it would mean more just for him as a human and as a coach than it would be for anybody else.
Yeah, my former editor, Tony Siracusa at Last Word on Sports, coined the term, and I'll always give him credit, Coach Instacart, when referring to Mario Cristobal. He can buy all the ingredients, but he can't cook the meal. And that has been a good way to describe him over the course of his career, honestly. And we'll see what happens here. Matchups like this obviously are going to be won in the trenches. That's cliche, right? But we know that it's true, and we can see some players on both sides of this matchup that really play into that. But my question is going to go to the position group that everybody loves to talk about, and I'm never going to shy away from talking quarterbacks because that's where people's eyes and ears are going to focus. Who do you trust more, Marcel Reed or Carson Beck? I'll start on this one and see if we can get a rare agreement. Here's what I think. I'm going to trust Marcel Reed more today because this is a high-pressure situation. I think that overall, Carson Beck, surprisingly, to me, feels more consistent. Now, Carson Beck has these random times when he throws 3 to 4 interceptions and things are just way off the rails. And it's often in big moments where we see him kind of shrink. On the flip side, Marcel feels very inconsistent to me as a passer when they drop him back too much, and he just misses his receivers. And the plays that I said this with Craig the other day, the plays that Marcel Reed doesn't make are not plays that show up in highlights or stat sheets because they're just missed touchdowns. They're wide open receivers that they're 25-yard gains, and he just sails it, or he throws it too far out in front of them, or whatever the case may be. It's not necessarily always been turnovers. Beck turns the ball over when things get pressure. But as we look at the matchup today, there's so much pressure, and Marcel Reed has consistently shown up when there's the most pressure on him, maybe with the exception of that Texas game. You could see him at the end of the Notre Dame matchup earlier in the year. Didn't play well necessarily across the course of the game, but then the game is on the line, and he just marches straight down the field and takes over the game. Against South Carolina, you're down 31-3 at the half, and you see your season maybe in front of you with a different outcome on the line, and he just comes out and slices and dices and plays a perfect second half. So when the pressure is there, I'm going to trust Marcel Reed. And when is there more pressure than the college football playoff? Which one are you going with, Beck or Reed?
Again, this is like such a toss-up. I don't know.
That's kind of the point, right?
I understand. Here's where I struggle with the Marcel Reed comparison. And I was listening to another podcast, our good friends Billy Lucci and Amanda Atwell. I was listening to their podcast, and Billy was referring to the fact that outside of Texas, who has A&M really wholeheartedly played? Like, if we call a spade, Notre Dame's schedule was so weak that there wasn't even the argument to put them in the college football playoff. So they played Notre Dame. So, and I'm not taking away your points. There were times that Marcel Reed was under pressure. You can't be down at half against South Carolina that way and not feel pressure going into the second half. So I'm not disagreeing with the fact that I think Marcel Reed has performed under pressure. I think I struggle because I don't know which of these quarterbacks has actually been battle tested and proven that they're capable of winning at the highest level of college football, which is the college football playoff. When Marcel Reed was faced with an opponent of any type caliber towards the end of the season, we saw what happened, and they lost to Texas. The flip side of that is that the ACC was insanely weak, so I don't know when Carson Beck was tested. If I'm not going to say that A&M wasn't tested with Notre Dame and then say that Miami was tested with Notre Dame. I don't think that's the case either. So I don't really know. I think this is really going to come down to which quarterback makes the least amount of errors or which defense forces the most amount of mistakes. I think we do tend to lean Carson Beck in terms of an error-making quarterback than I probably would Marcel Reed. The flip side of that is that Carson Beck is not in any way, shape, or form going to be rattled by the environment today. He has born and bred in these environments. He knows what it's like. He played at the highest level of college football with Georgia. And so I'm going to go Marcel Reed, and that's strictly because at this moment in time, I think the SEC is the tougher conference, even though I think that A&M had a weak SEC schedule and hasn't necessarily been insanely tested. And their one test they didn't pass, in my opinion. With that being said, I am going to give Marcel Reed the advantage. I think he's played in tougher environments this year. I think he has probably seen higher levels of talent. Whether or not those entire teams were better is a topic for another day. But if I have to gun to my head, pick a quarterback, I'll take Marcel Reed.
Wow, we just agreed on something. That's fantastic.
We did.
We're getting it together, Joy. We're
getting better.
We're figuring this thing out. I don't know if that means that we're producing better or worse content by agreeing with each other. I think it's a little more funny when we disagree. I want to take a minute just to highlight some news here. My friend Drew Crabtree in the chat box points out that he thinks that Toledo is headed for the college football playoff next year, which is a funny comment. But in all seriousness, I saw the text from Drew earlier, and also got the ESPN notification that Kenny Dillingham is finalizing a new deal at Arizona State, which takes another potential coaching move off the table as we look at some of how this coaching carousel is going to continue to play out through the college football playoff. The timing of all this is crazy, and we've spent a lot of time, and I mean a lot of time, talking about the timing of the Lane Kiffin saga and how that played out in terms of the season that Ole Miss is having and how does that work. We're still seeing it. Now we're talking about Kalen DeBoer. His team is still alive. They're in the second round. They're playing the number 1 seed Indiana Hoosiers. But we still have these lingering, even after a statement was released last week, we still have these lingering discussions about, well, what is really going on with Kalen DeBoer? And so I'll also point out that the NFL season and coaching carousel will always domino its way down to college football as well. Somebody will get pulled up inevitably, whether it's a key coordinator or a head coach, and that will then start another wave of coaching carousel in the college football world. You and I talked a little bit this week, and this is not obviously top tier news because the college football playoff is happening, but Lane Kiffin appears to be hiring Sterling Lucas away from South Carolina, and it's those types of position moves that, even though, dare I say, the dust has settled on the Lane Kiffin saga and that whole coaching move stuff, as I look up on the TV behind me and they're running a huge segment on ESPN about Lane Kiffin going to LSU right now, and Marty Smith is talking to Trinidad Chambliss. But those kind of tertiary moves when we get into the position coaches are still happening, and they're going to continue to happen, and we're not going to have this thing settled for a little bit of time. And it's funny how it continues to impact teams that are still alive in the college football playoff. So Kenny Dillingham appears to be inking a new deal, staying in at Arizona State, and that means you take him off the table, and that moves somebody's focus, whether it's Michigan or anybody else, moves their focus elsewhere as we look to replace some coaches. And then if it's a college coach, if it's an NFL coach, if whatever happens, then that guy has to be replaced, and so on and so forth. And until you get down to the G5 level, as long as we're playing around in the Power 4 field, we're going to continue to have these discussions about how these dominoes are falling and what's being moved. Just wanted to make a note there as we got that breaking news this morning. All right, Joy, let's play a little game here. A little game of Would You Rather to set up a couple of things. It's been an interesting week for Notre Dame, as we have seen them left out of the college football playoff, opting out of bowl season, talking all the talk on social media. But social media has also been a hot spot for Vanderbilt fans and Diego Pavia supporters coming off of the Heisman Trophy ceremony and his antics, followed by a ChatGPT apology. And then people like Reese Davis saying he wished he could change his vote and take him off the ballot. Like, a lot of stuff happening around that topic. So not the most positive of weeks for the Irish and the Commodores. Would you rather today on December, 20th, 2025, would you rather be a Notre Dame fan or a Vanderbilt fan right now as it stands on X and in the world?
Easiest answer of my whole life. I'd rather be a Vanderbilt fan. You couldn't pay me. There's not enough zeros you could write on a check to make me a Notre Dame Irish fan. I just will never in a million years do it. I will never be proud of being a leprechaun. I will never be proud of being a program that hasn't won anything that's mattered in this century. I will never be proud of a program that consistently quits, that says that their players voted on it, and then you come out and find out that the AD said that they weren't going to play. I just could not in any way, shape, or form be proud of anything that Notre Dame has done this year. Here's the deal. You always, like, as a college football fan, your team is going to produce a player that you're not always proud of. And the reality is like Diego Pavia did put Vanderbilt back on the back. He did make them relevant again. They had the most fun year that those fans have had in decades. And so I don't think that, like, that's the easiest decision I could ever make. I can easily disassociate a player from my program. I can't disassociate the embarrassment of being a Notre Dame fan.
Okay, we're 1 for 1. We're 1 for 1. I'm agreeing with you there. I'm definitely going with Vanderbilt for one, because they're in the best conference in the country and they're not still playing this independent game. Notre Dame is living in a false reality, believing that the history and the lore of their name still carries as much weight as it did before. Our friend Clay Travis points out on X a couple of weeks ago, or I guess last week as all this broke, that I'll give myself a shout out and a pat here, that South Carolina actually averaged more viewers per game this year than Notre Dame did, according to Nielsen. So we don't have this national fan base tuning in to what's happening with the Irish, you got a chance to go up there and check them out this year. So I trust your perspective as we go with Vandy. And the Pavia era is over, and maybe a little bit of a blemish on the back end, but we look forward to seeing him in this media space, as I believe that's where he will ultimately end up making his career. All right, second question here. Would you rather have a bye week or a first round home game?
First round home game. Easy. And again, another easy answer. I was talking about this morning. I almost think a bye week is like a disadvantage. You have so much time that you have to not play a game. And I think your fan base gets more invested when you have a first round home game. Your fan base is immediately involved from start to finish of the college football playoff. And I think we saw it last year. Like teams that had a first round bye really struggled in the second round of the college football playoffs. So I am a big proponent of home college football playoff games. I think we could play them all the way up to the Natty, and I would be thrilled with that. So yeah, that's an easy answer for me. Give me a first round home playoff game every day.
Yeah, we're 2 for 2 on that one because I've said the same exact thing many times. All 4 teams lost last year that got bye weeks. We're going to see what happens this time. I do think Oregon beats Texas Tech. We've been on the record saying that already. And I think Ole Miss has a real shot at Georgia because Georgia's going to sit around and get cold. And so I'll be interested to see how that one plays out. We've made mention of this across shows on our network, on other networks. I asked Cole Kublik the question though, and he said earlier here in this hour that he thinks that the bye week is still very important and that you need that time to get healthy and that health and depth is the number one factor. And he's looking at style of fight. He's looking at matchups in those second round games and not so much the fact that somebody sat around and wasn't playing. But I just can't get past the fact that for years coaches complained about bowl games and the national championship being a month out and sitting around for so long. And now all of a sudden we're giving the top 4 teams a month off essentially. And it's not a problem anymore. It's definitely a problem. It's gonna be talked about. And hopefully if we go to 16 soon, we can get rid of these bye weeks and move forward. But, we mentioned this earlier as well, the report from Dellinger yesterday that the format may be 13 versus 16, 14 versus 15, and then those teams will then be into a play-in type format. I would love to see 1 versus 16. And that leads me to my next question, Joy. If we go to a 16-team format, are you in favor of a 1 versus 16 model, or would you rather have matchups at the bottom for teams like that to kind of play their way in 13 versus 16, 14 versus 15?
I honestly, if I'm being so honest, I really care less about the formatting and more about the 16 teams that are getting in. I have the same problem that I have right now with a 12-team playoff, and that is that I think automatic bids are stupid. I have said this since the birth of the college football playoff when they announced, when we were going to 4, I was like, okay, no automatic bids. I'm in for that because it's the 4 best teams in college football. Obviously, the last year of that, there was some subjectivity because of Florida State, but take that out, and I think objectively for the first couple years of the playoffs, you got the 4 best teams in college football. Now we've expanded and we're getting automatic bids, and we talked about it earlier in the show, Rob. We're going to have 2 games later that are going to fight with NFL teams for viewership because there's 2 teams in there that no one thinks is going to give Oregon or Ole Miss a game. So I don't really care about the formatting of the 16-team playoff. I care that it's the 16 best teams in college football and that no one got a participation trophy entry fee into the college football playoff. That's what I care about. I don't care who's playing who in seeding wise. I don't give a dang about any of that. I want to see this. If we're going to play a 16-game playoff, I want to see the 16 best teams in college football play it.
Okay, I'm not sure if we agree or disagree because you avoided my would you rather a little bit there, but I'm going to go with 1 versus 16. I think this play-in format is stupid. I don't like it at all. It doesn't set us up for success in the long term. I don't have time to go on all of the reasons why I don't like it, but I'm completely out. Okay, let's have a little fun. 2 more. Number 1, would you rather Pop-Tarts or Cheez-Its? Probably the 2 most fun bowls. Sorry, Duke's Mayo. 2 most fun bowls. We've seen a lot of antics. I was at the Cheez-It Bowl last year. We had a wedding. We had a Cheez-It DJ. We had all kinds of stuff. But if you're at the Pop-Tart Bowl, then We know that brings a lot of fun as well. So would you rather Pop-Tarts, Cheez-Its?
I'm going to go Cheez-Its, but I'm salt over sugar any day of the week.
What's your Pop-Tart flavor?
I don't eat Pop-Tarts.
Well, there's like battery acid or something in them, so that's probably or antifreeze
great.
or whatever. So it's probably a good thing. Sorry, Pop-Tarts, not trying to throw shade on your products, but definitely the classic strawberry or the brown sugar cinnamon, though, if we're picking a flavor. All right, last one. As the founder, the owner, the design extraordinaire, crew necks or mock necks at SEC Pretty? Which one is your go-to?
I gotta go mock neck. I don't know. I think they might just be a fad. I think they might just be a trend. And if that's the case, then I'm gonna ride the trend until it's over. But a crew neck will always be classic. Like you'll never go wrong with a crew neck. But I think right now at the same time, gun to my head, mock necks. As she wears a crew neck.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that mock necks may be a trend. But that's the whole point, right? Like if it's a trend, we absolutely need to ride it. As somebody who's producing a product, it's that's important, right? We want everybody to be able to get what makes them look the best in the moment, in the season, and obviously there's so much more to come. Joy, this has been an incredibly fun hour. We're going to get out of here, but before we do, I need scores from you, and I have to give mine. So let's start Texas A&M, Miami. I'll go. Craig came in at 31-17. I'm going 27-20 Aggies. Riding that Texas A&M train. I know it's going to be tough for you to pick Texas A&M, but we'll see what you got here. Give me a score.
I hate this so much. 24-21 Aggies.
Close one. So that would not actually cover the 3.5. So that'll put you in interesting territory. Okay. As a reminder, Craig went 31-17 as well on the matchup in Oxford. I'm going to go I had not talked to him. I wrote down my scores this morning before hitting the go live button. But I also have 31-17. So this is going to be difficult. Either we're both going to be wrong or we're both going to be very right. I think that Ole Miss wins 31-17. I think it's a little closer than what it was before. What do you think?
Okay, I'm going 34-14.
Okay.
Ole Miss.
So that means covering their 17.5 point favorite there. Yeah, I think it was obvious that it was Ole Miss. Now, lastly, not an SEC game. Not an SEC game, but we're going to pick it because it's college football playoff, and that's where we're at right now. Craig with an astronomical beatdown, 42-7. He predicts Oregon to win that game. I've got Oregon winning 34-10, which would still cover because they're 21-point favorites. That's a 24-point game. What do you think? How does this one play out in Eugene?
I do think Oregon scores 42 points. I just do think JMU scores a few more. So I'm going 42-20 Oregon.
All right. There we go. So we've got all of our scores recorded and we're ready to go. We'll be back tomorrow night. Craig and I will be back on at 8 o'clock. And Joy will shout you out for all the ways that you were wrong because that's what we do and that's what we love most here on SEC Sunday Night. It is the SEC Pretty Hour in partnership with SEC Sunday Night Live on the Chief Sports Network. Joy, thanks so much. This was a ton of fun, and we'll see what we have cooked up for 2026.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You guys have a great day. Enjoy the rest of the college football playoff round 1. We'll be recapping on Sunday night, and then we'll get ready for round 2. We'll see you tomorrow.